So, on the previous video, we see how to make the basis for our camera, for our cover system. Okay, so when we were going towards the edge of a cover, then we can start aiming and it will play the animation. What we're going to see now is make it so that we can also aim when we are crouching, and we are also going to crouch and change the whole logic depending on if we are crouching or not. Okay, now another thing we're going to do is when we are on a cover position that is only half cover, okay, I can aim no matter where I am. Okay, and we saw how to move when our cover position is linear. Now we're going to see how we can actually follow a path along a cover position, so you do not have to move out or get out of cover to snap into a different cover. Okay, and we can also aim from the side or from the top, and we will also see how to crouch or not, okay, depending on if we're hitting S or not. And we're also going to see how to change the pivot of the camera, okay, according like that, so that we have different cover. And okay, let's see. Now, first of all, we're going to need some stuff. We're going to need some new animations, which all the animations I've created, you can find them in the description below. And I've also set up the animator, so you don't really have to do anything. Okay, just drop the animator, which is this animator. It has all the animations set up, and some animations are switched because are not mine. I've bought them, so I can't share them. Okay, but everything that I've made is included there. Now there's some changes on the animator I did. If you remember, on the previous video, we see on the covers we only had, for each stance we only had one animation. Okay, so we basically we're going into all our blend trees and say and add a different stance. Okay, crouching and cover full. Okay, and it plays the according animation depending on what we have inside our blend. Okay, as I said, the animations aren't really anything special. Okay, so I've also added the transitions for when we are crouching to start aiming, okay, which is something like this. The conditions are aim stance and aim at sides. I've added a new boolean which is aim at sides, because when we are crouching we want to know if we want to aim from this position to this position, or aim when we are not at the edges of our cover. Okay, so for the left side, for the right side, and of course for when we are aiming, when we are in cover and we want to aim towards up. Okay, it just plays this. And we also added a new boolean, crouch to up aim, okay, which basically, if it's true, then the aiming is true. If the crouch to up aim is true and we're not aiming at sides, then that means we're aiming from cover. We just get up from cover and shoot. And when we are crouching, we want to play a different locomotion tree, which has all the crouch animations basically, for walk, idle, and all the other stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to go into further detail with the animator, since you can find it in the description below and it's already set up. So let's move into the next thing we're going to use. Now, this is a rare case that we're going to use an asset, but the asset is free, so it's not really a problem to use it. Okay, and we're simply going to use that asset, which is this one. Okay, Bezier curve editor. You will find, I'll put a link for this in the description below. Now, this, it's not really needed, but it has some cool stuff. Basically the visualization, and instead of making a whole different video just to visualize a few lines, I suggest just use that, and it has some other functions too. But what we basically want from this asset is the visualization of our curves, basically, but not our curves, of the path. Now this asset, what you can do with this asset is create a few points, and basically if I change the handle type to something else for connected, let me find this. Okay, instead of using it as a linear from point to point, I can make it as a curve. So if I want to go and snap into that cover, I start move around a curve. Now, because curves are not linear, of course, as you can understand, then it's not always the best case to use a curve, okay, or Bezier curve. So I'm just going to keep it as none, so it's just linear. Even in AAA games, you will see that they're not always going on a curve, okay, because the way curves are handled, you might need to change a bit the logic from what we have underneath, okay, to not affect, to move, basically to move on the line more smoother and with pretty much the same speed, okay. And we not really want to complicate all that much. No, this will be the last point should be over here. Okay, so let's see how we can make a new cover position with the system. Now, we've actually, if you remember, we have everything. We have the cover position script we made on the previous video, where we were dropping 2 points, okay, the position 1 and position 2. Now we're going to use the curve path for that, but we're still going to keep the block position 1 and 2. We still want to know the length, and we also have the cover type. So if I want to make a new cover position, I can create an empty game object, of course, which I'm going to, let's rename that to cover position, and I'm going to add inside a collider, okay, which will go, and we're going to set it as a trigger, and I'm going to add a cover position script. Now we need to have the path. I'm going to create a new empty game object, and I'm going to add component, and it's the Bezier curve that is from the asset. Now when you first import the asset, you will get some warnings because it uses it's a little outdated, and it uses some stuff that are obsolete in Unity. Now it won't give you errors, and it's mostly handled from the editor side, so you probably won't have any problems when you build, okay. So if you want, take the time and fix it. It's just simple switches. You switch the old stuff with the new one, and if you do not find something, if you cannot find it to work, if you comment it out, then it won't have any problems. But let's see, let's name this as path, okay. And what I can do now is click add point, and I want this is a test, so let's add 3 points. and then I can say I can individually come over here and place the points where I wanted to be placed. Now, the limitations we set up on the previous, basically, since we are not using a curve, we only want to use that as linear, or if you want to use it as a curve, so you have some smoothing, the thing I've showed before. Okay, you can choose and play with the settings. Now I'm going to choose none, none, and none. Okay, so that it keeps a linear path. Now if I delete this, it's going to get an error, but that's how the asset, this script works anyway. So it's best to delete the whole path and just do it again. Okay, so I have my path, I have my collider. Now the way we change the script, I can have multiple colliders wherever I want, and when I find one, okay, it will be going to the script. Now I'm not going to use this cover position, but the settings still stand as the previous one, and the cover type we can select as the previous video, I mean the settings. Okay, that's simply how you set up using the script, a path using the script, and a cover position to use for our needs. Now it doesn't matter the length, where the y of the cover path. Okay, we override that anyway, so we do not care where it is. It's always going to keep the y, the previous y the character had. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to go into our cover position script. Okay, now the previous stuff we had, we don't need this anymore. We're going to keep block position 1, block position 2, the curve path, which is what we just made, the length, and the cover type. Now on start, get component children, the Bezier curve, which is our path, and then the length we can call, it has a function that, it's a variable that stores the length anyway, so we don't have to do anything like that. So we just simply can pass the length to take it from the curve path length. Okay, pretty simple. Now let's do one thing first in the free camera look, which we should have done on the previous video. Okay, and that is when we are handling the stage manager, free camera look. Okay, when we are doing changes to the look angle, if the look angle is greater than 360, then make it to 0. If the look angle is lower than 360, then make the angle to 0. In any case, if it's 360, then now I could have used just a MathFabs look angle greater than 360, but anyway, this works too. Okay, which basically doesn't let the look angle get higher than 360, because when we were turning around, it could go to pretty high values, and we didn't want that. So that's it for the free camera look. We're not going to do anything, any other changes in here. Now we change our whole cover system. So let's see the changes we need to do onto our state manager, and then on our player movement and all the other stuff. So we have, when we are looking to get in cover, okay, we were used to find the distance from the first position. Now the first position is, when we use get point at, we simply pass the percentage of the length. Okay, think of the path as still a lerp. Okay, so that means at 0 you are at the first point of the path, at 1 you are at the end. Okay, so we want to find the first position, and that first position is the very first percentage when each percentage is 0. Okay. Now we have the cover percentage. To find the cover percentage, we simply subdivide our distance from the first point to the whole length of our path. Okay. We change we don't need to find direction scale to where we place anything else. Okay, so we basically just use the get point at, and we find the actual length and we find the percentage basically. So everything else we were doing on the previous video, it's not needed anymore. Okay, so we simply get the target position is the get point at from the cover percentage we have over here. Okay, and then we start doing everything we did on the previous video, which is called the coroutine to lerp to that position. Okay, and we pass this stuff. Now, this way we get into our cover. Since we are in cover and we change the stuff, we need to also change the way we were moving into our cover. Okay, so on player movement, on handle cover movement, we're going to keep this thing over here. We're going to use the rotation. We change the method of how we were moving. Okay, because it's not linear anymore. We cannot just have the same position. We can't just use the first position's rotation to where we want to look. Okay. Now, and I move this into a different function. I encapsulate it into a different function, and I've used it even down the road, even down a logic. Okay, because I first need to find. Okay, we have our path length. We find the movement the same way as before. We turn the movement into percentage. Okay, we add that to our cover moving percentage. Then we club the cover percentage, our path percentage, how far we are into the path, between 0 and 1 values. Okay, we find the path position we are at. Okay, which is we use the get point at, and then we change the y to the same position, the same y as the position has. Okay, so it doesn't matter how high we have set up the path, and then we call to handle the cover rotation. Okay, and we do that because to find our cover rotation, we need to have the percentage, the position we are now at the path, and a little bit ahead of us. Okay, so the forward percentage will be a current cover percentage plus 0.1, or you can get even lower or even higher, but it doesn't really matter. So we need to make sure though that the ahead position is not it's a value that it belongs to our path. Okay, so if it's higher than 0.99, just make it to 1. So we want the position we have now, which is a vector 3. We want the position forward. We have the position forward. Okay, we use get point at. This returns, we pass the percentage, it returns a vector 3. Okay, since we know the position we are now and the position ahead of us, then we only simply need to find the direction, and the direction we want to look at is the cross product between those two functions. Okay, between those two vector 3s. We change, we remove the y, otherwise our character will rotate to look up and down, and we do not want that. And we simply, as before, we use quaternion look rotation, and then we do a spherical interpolation from transfer rotation to the target rotation and all that. Okay. Get out of cover. Now, the other change we need to do on search for cover, and it's a simple one. Okay, when we're doing arraycast to find a collider that has the cover position, we were only looking at the game object that had the collider. Now we want to look for a game object that is above the cover position, above the collider we hit. Okay, so that means this way we can simply have multiple colliders into one cover or into one cover object. This way, because this is one path, and this one path has basically two colliders. Okay, one collider is this one, and the other collider is this one. Okay, so no matter where I hit it, if I hit this collider or this collider, then it will return me this cover position which both of these belong. Okay, so change the get component, the simple get component it was where we had, to get component in parent. Okay, in all of these 4 positions. Now, this is basically how we get into cover and how we get out of cover. Now we're going to see how we can make our character crouch, and we're going to see that from the state manager. Okay, we're going to add a few new booleans, which is crouching and stance. Okay, and we're also going to add a boolean so that we know we are in crouch cover, and we also need a boolean to know if we are aiming at the sides or not. Now, now we have a new function that is called handle stance, and we need also a float that is target stance. So what we're saying on a handle stance, if we are crouching, if we are not crouching, then our target stance is 1. That means we play the animation that we are standing. Okay, else target stance is 0. Then we simply take the stance and we do a lerp from a current stance to the target stance and by time.delta time and so on. Okay. That's basically the changes we need to do on the state manager, and we handle everything else inside the input handler. But before we see that, let's see the handle animations. Now, what we added is, if we are into cover, we had that, okay, and cover direction, we also have both of these. Now we need to add the new booleans we added and the new float, which is the stance. We make it to be the same as whatever the state manager stance has. Crouch to up aim if we are on a state's crouch cover. Okay, and unset bool if we are aiming at the sides. Then if the states, we basically update all the booleans and the float we have into our animator based on the input we take from, not the input, based from what the state manager says. Okay, let me remove that. And now let's go to the difficult part, quote unquote. And I might have something else in the player manager. Okay, let me make sure that I do not forget anything. Okay, now in case I didn't say it, okay, we find the position on the path, we find the rotation. Now then we simply need to update the position. Okay, So let's go to the difficult part, which is the input handler. Let's take it from the top. Now we've added a few new booleans: public bool left pivot, change pivot, and crouch. Not gonna use that. On start we have nothing else, nothing new. Then on fixed update, this all stuff is the same, except that now we have we want to control the pivot Y, okay, based on if we are crouching or not. Okay, so if we are not crouching, then the pivot position Y will be the same as the starting position Y. So whatever we set it on the inspector, then it's going to keep that position, that Y. But if we are crouching, then we take the same position as the starting Y, then we simply subtract 0.5, half a point from that. Now this isn't the most dynamic way to do it. Okay, it just simply works for now. What you can do is make it dynamic to see how they let's see over here. Okay, so the Y of the pivot is 1.7. okay, then it makes it to be something -5, so it's around 1.1. What you can do is look at find the position of the torso of the character, and if the torso of the character is basically change the Y of the pivot according to the height of where the torso is from the ground. Okay, we're not going to do that right now. It's not really necessary. Okay, so basically what you need to take from this is that we, instead of using the pivot position Y we always had, we simply want to influence that depending on if we are crouching or not. Next, if we are in cover, okay, we keep up we still keep the changing the position of the X to negative or positive based on what cover direction we had. Okay, we still update the camera values, and then we have a few changes. So if we are aiming, we initialize the local position we always had. Okay, and we make it as 0. So if we are in stage crouch cover position, and we are not aiming at sides, so that means we are in a cover position, but we're not on the edges. So I'm not over here and not over here. Then if I want to reset the Y of the pivot. Okay, so we simply get the starting pivot position, the one we saved, and we pass new angles for where we want to aim on our cover or on our camera, basically the angles we want to look to. So -50 and angle max to 50, I think it worked great for me, and it probably should work for you too. Now if we are not in a crouch cover position and not aiming, and if we are not in a crouch cover position not aiming, okay, so if we are not in this case, then we do what we were already doing. Okay, so that means we pass the local position the same way as before. So the X is on the cover, the X depending on where we are aiming or our cover direction. Now the thing I change is that I take the Y and make it 0. Okay, and the camera values, camera offset Z, is the same as before. We update the angles the same way as before. Okay, depending on cover direction, we pass the appropriate minimum and maximum angles. And then, let me remove the bookmarks. And then we have our local position, which updates depending on what state we are. Okay, and then we simply, just as before, we turn that local position to wall position. We take that wall position Y to be the same as the transform position Y, and then we change the camera values, the target camera offset, to the wall position, and then we simply pass. We change the pivot position. Okay, this is where we place the pivot Y, which we change over here, and we change over here too. Okay. On the previous videos, we were simply changing the Y from the starting pivot position. Okay, we have the target pivot position. We simply lerp the pivot local position from what it is to the target one. Okay, and then we simply need to change our camera as the same way as before to the new target position. This is for the fixed update. Let's see the other ones. Now we have our input. We want to take our raw input and run it through a few checks and see what it comes out basically. Okay, so I've added. If we are going to crouch, then we have input get key down key code with a set. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean that your character is going to crouch. It means that you say you want it to crouch. Okay, keep that in mind. So, if we are in cover, okay, the change pivot it's kind of the same thing as the crouch. It doesn't mean you can actually change the pivot. It means you want to change the pivot. Okay. For now, just put it. Yeah, we simply cannot change the pivot when we are in cover because we control that based on our direction. So forget about that. Now, if we are in states in cover, we want to check what kind of cover type it is. So we simply do a check if the cover type is half. If it's half, that means we are on half position. We are on cover like this, okay, and not like a full wall. So we simply say to the states that we are on a crouch cover position. Okay, if it's not that cover position, if it's not that type, which is the half, okay, we only have two types, so that means it's not a crouch cover position. Now you have more types, then you need to upgrade this a little bit and do more stuff for the other cases. So one thing for sure is if we are aiming, we cannot move. If you want to change that, you might have to change a few stuff, but okay, we're not going to be bothered about that. It's pretty simple to expand on this, on the whole script anyway. Okay, so we say if we are at one of the edges of the cover, the same way as before, okay, and that position is not blocked, then we can aim, and we are also aiming at the sides. Okay, when you see aim at the sides, means that I probably should have explained it before. Okay, when I say aim at sides, it means I'm aiming like this and not like this. Okay. Then we simply clamp the movement the same way as before. Depending on what side we are, we only allowed movement backwards of the path or forward, depending on which side. Now, if this is not the case, so if the cover percentage is lower than 0.99, then we check if we are lower than 0.01. We clamp the horizontal once again from the other side, and then we say we still check if we are blocking that position or not. So if we are not, then we can aim, and we are aiming at sides again. Now, else we simply are not aiming at the sides. Okay, but if it's a crouch cover position, that means I can get up and aim. And let me remove the bookmarks. The bookmarks is how I keep track of everything, and so I do not forget to mention something. Okay, so on the else statement of if we are not in cover, okay, we simply keep stuff pretty much as before, only we say we are not in cover, so we're not in a crouch cover position, and then we cannot aim, means that this is only the aiming is handled the same way as before. Okay, so this can aim is only for when we are in cover. So if we press the get key, if we press the E key, then we say the change pivot boolean is the opposite of what it was, and then we say left pivot it's true or false depending on our input over here. Okay, so we have and we take all our input, so the only thing left to do now is to actually take that input and update. So think of the handle input, what we want it to do, what we are saying it to do, but the update states comes to say us if we can actually do that thing. So if we are not in cover, then the walking control, we are moving. I think I've mentioned this before. Okay, if we are not in cover, then that means we are moving by the path and not by basically by forces. Okay, so if we are not in cover and if we do not want to run, then walk. It's depending on if we are hitting the shift key. Otherwise, it's true. Okay, and basically it's from the sealed video that I did. If we have enabled the don't run, that means then you will always want to walk. Okay, anyway, forget about that. Horizontal, we simply take the row horizontal and the row vertical, but we say states, we update the states horizontal and the states vertical, and we update from what it returns from the handle input. Okay, now if we are in cover, we want to split our input. Okay, so if we are in a crouch cover position, that means we can aim from everywhere. So if mouse 2, if we are basically holding the right mouse button, then we can aim, otherwise we are not aiming. But if we are not in a crouch cover position, then we want to do what we did before, and if we are pressing the right mouse button and the states allows us to aim, that means we are aiming, otherwise then you cannot aim. Simple. So if we are not in cover, we do everything same as before if we are on the ground and if we are holding the right mouse button. Same as before for for the aiming. Okay, so basically it changes the Z of the camera. Okay, this is basically for the shooting and the Z. So we're not going to mess with this. Anyway, if we are crouching, if we want to crouch, if our input says that we want to crouch, then we go and say states, basically not if we want to crouch, if the input for the crouch is true, then it changes the states crouching to the opposite of what it was. And that happens basically if you press A, you do not want to use different keys for if you are crouching or not. Okay, we're using the same, and just goes and makes it the opposite, and then the stage manager handles the stance and the animations from there and there and there. Okay, but if we are in a half cover position, we always want to crouch. So if we are in the crouch cover position, whatever this says, it simply gets overridden by this, so it doesn't matter in the end. But only if we are on a crouch cover position. Okay, and we basically covered most of the stuff. Let me see if I forgot anything. Yeah, we covered pretty much everything we had to cover. Okay, so this way we can do all the stuff. We can have cover position. I can name up from cover position. Okay, if I am on the sides, I can get out of cover and name. I'm moving, I can move upon a path. Okay, and you find the other way. I can name too. I can name up. I can get out of cover. Yeah, there is another cover position over here. I can run. I can crouch. I can get up, crouch. I can name. I can move. Now, you will notice that because our animations are not the perfect ones, you see that it doesn't look like I'm aiming. I'm not aiming towards the crosshair. We're going to fix that. We're actually going to fix where the right hand is looking on a later video, when we're going to go into more detail about projectiles and bullets and all that stuff. Okay, so do not worry too much about that, and we can have our weapons just like that. So make sure you understand the difference between a position like this and a crouch cover position. Okay, if I'm over here, I probably shouldn't be able to aim, but I can see that I can aim right now. So I'm actually going to pause the video and see why I'm aiming when I shouldn't be aiming. Okay, so the problem was pretty simple to fix actually. Okay, now I cannot aim when I'm in this cover position and not on the sides. So the only thing that I had to change was go into my handle input when we are in cover. Okay, if it's not cover type half, okay, if you are not in half cover, then we simply need to reset the aim at sides. Okay, otherwise if we went first if we once go into the cover, if basically the problem was that the aim at sides wasn't turning to false when we first turned to true, so that way we had the problem. Okay, now it's correct. So we had a lot of stuff to cover. We covered pretty much a lot of stuff. Now, basically this is a pretty good prototype actually for a third-person game. Okay, we have cover positions, we have not just cover positions, we have different types of cover positions, we have running, we have aiming, we have weapon changing, we have different types of weapon changing, okay, like the shield, as we saw in the previous video, not the previous video, from few videos back. Okay, so that basically leaves us to start doing detail work. Okay, this controller, I feel it's pretty much complete. And now we're going to keep doing a few more stuff with it. But we're going to see, I'm going to see what else I'm going to add. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with the status of this project. Okay, I think it's pretty good work, and I'm pretty sure you will think the same. Now there is of course a lot of polishing to be done. Okay, nothing is perfect unless you work like 10 months on it, and even then it might not even be perfect. So with this, and I think I'm going to close the video, to end the video right now. Okay, if you liked it, then consider supporting it. It helps way more than the ad revenue, which is basically non-existent on YouTube. Okay, so the ad revenue is basically a joke at this point. Okay, so if you liked it, consider supporting so that we can make a lot more cool videos and a lot more stuff like this, because all the stuff not just take time to find it, to find the ways to create it, but to also find ways to be simple to reproduce and to explain it. Okay, anybody can make something look cool, but not everybody can make it so that it can explain it to other guys, to other people. Okay, so it takes a lot of time, and the reward it's not as much as it should probably deserve. So anyway, if you like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, spread the word around, consider supporting your Patreon, or grabbing a project or two from the Gumroad so that we can continue keeping all this cool stuff and doing all this nice stuff and even more. Okay, so I'll see you next time.